Hey homie, it's your girl Eboni from Homegirl Astrology, and today we are talking about the ninth house. As you may already know, the astrology birth chart, or really any astrology chart in general, is going to be broken up into 12 houses. And each of those houses in the chart represent different areas of life. By understanding which house a planet is in or which house a planet is ruling, that will tell us more about how that area of our lives is being impacted. So it behooves us to know more about each of these houses and what they mean. By the end of this video, you'll have a good understanding of what the ninth house is all about, and you'll know why it's one of my favorite houses in the chart. So if your ninth house is lit up like Diddy at a freak off, or you're just curious about learning more about this house of exploration and growth, please stick around. We'll look into several celebrity examples and the meanings of the ninth house right after the beat drops. And we're back. The ninth house was traditionally known as the house of days, which is the house of God. Though it is a house of religion, it's so much more than that. For starters, the ninth house is a house of long distance travel, voyages, and journeys to places that we don't know. Foreign affairs, international law, the United Nations, shipping, sea travel, airlines, all of these things are connected to the ninth house. So if you're someone who has more passport stamps than you do pairs of underwear like me, then you might be a ninth house girly. Again, the ninth house is a house of long distances, not just foreign countries. I had a client who was from California, and she had either the ruler of her seventh house was in the ninth house or vice versa, or it was Venus in the ninth, something like that. Her husband was not a foreign born person. He was born in the US. However, he's from the other side of the country, from Washington, D.C. So if you've ever been to Cali, you've ever been to D.C., cultures are pretty different, even though they're within the same country. So historically, a long journey would be a journey of a day or a few days. So think about it, if you were driving or taking a horse and buggy or something like that from DC to California, that would be a long distance journey. The ninth house is also representing places where we seek guidance or counsel from other people. It's where we venture into the unknown to broaden our sense of wisdom and understanding. It's where we expand our horizons. I know that sounds pretty broad, but think about any of the places you might go to seek wisdom outside of your tiny little box of a life. That was so shady. I didn't mean it like that. But you're seeking knowledge and experiences to help you gain a different perspective on your immediate surroundings. So this is a house of divination. So think about all the different ways or media through which we communicate to hear from the divine. Tarot cards, astrology, dream interpretation, geomancy, that bibliomancy where you could flip through a book and an answer could come to you. Maybe it's bumper stickers. That's one way that I get messages as well. Church, of course, a mosque, a temple, whatever that may be for you, all of those things are covered by the ninth house. It's all about connecting to something bigger than ourselves. So philosophy, beliefs, all of those things. If there are troublesome planets or the ninth house is afflicted in some way, then there can be a tendency toward engaging in cults or other dogmatic types of entities. And I've already alluded to this a little bit with the last signification, but the ninth house is also a house of higher education, higher learning, scholarship, academia, wisdom, universities. Interestingly, lawyers, astrologers, physicians, those can all be seen in the ninth house as well because they require a certain level of education to operate in those spaces. And one of the things that I've noticed in my own practice is I have a strong ninth house and I do attract a lot of attorneys into my life. A lot of my clients are attorneys and many of them are also foreign born or their parents are foreign born. So you definitely see this ninth house story with them. And the ones who are not foreign born, a lot of times they do come from very religious households. So you kind of see that ninth house story playing through even in their lives. So let's move into some examples of famous Black women with ninth house influences in their charts. I want y'all to take a shot every time I mention the ninth house signification. Just kidding, don't do that. You're gonna die. I don't want to get sued, don't do that. Here lies the homie, but I am available for eulogies if you need me. Just kidding. I go so dark so fast. It's the Saturn, it's the Scorpio. Let's move on, get into these charts. So the first chart we're going to look at is that of the Queen of Soul, Miss Aretha Franklin. Aretha has the moon in her ninth house, Pluto in the ninth house, and Chiron. So that's a lot of ninth house stuff going on. She was born and raised in the church, and her dad was a well-known pastor. Pastor C.L. Franklin was huge in the church back then. Like, people from states around across the country knew who he was. So she was a preacher's kid, a PK as we call them. I think her having the moon and Pluto in the ninth house is interesting. Her father was likely a Plutonian figure in her life, and she idolized him. He was a powerful, well-connected man who actually died in a Plutonian way. Someone came into his house, shot him, and he remained in a coma until the end of his life 5 years later. Aretha also had a fear of flying that began in 1984 after she was on a flight that had lots of turbulence, and after that she was like, nah girl, I'm good, I'm not doing that no more. And every trip she took after that was through some other means of travel. And later this would extend to other types of transportation if the weather was bad. So even if the tour bus was taking off, if the weather was crazy, she wasn't trying to do it. Also, we know Aretha sang lots of gospel songs. And on a higher education tip, she never technically went to school or university, but she has 12 honorary degrees. So she didn't even have to go. She pulled them. Our next example is Chaka Khan. Chaka Khan has Moon and Uranus in the ninth house. She herself has been open in the past about her very strict Catholic upbringing. She spoke critically of the church at times. She actually said that she had a heavy Catholic upbringing and that Catholicism is terrible. It's the reason there were slaves. She said Mass every morning at 7 o'clock during Lent. Shit, it was a great relief when I finally realized what I was into and got out of it. And although it may have helped me make me the strong person that I am, I hate to give it credit for anything in my life. It's totally negative, man-made religion. And that for me speaks to this Chiron that is in opposition to the ruler of the ninth house, which is the moon. So the moon Chiron combination in this case can represent a wounding that's occurring in her religious life. So it sounds like her Catholic upbringing was really intense and wounding for her based on this description. Following separating from her husband, Chaka Khan actually moved to Europe. So this is her moon. Moon can represent the home, going to the ninth house, going abroad. She first settled in London and then later moved to Germany. I did see somewhere that she's an ordained minister. I don't know if that's true, but that would just kind of further indicate the ninth house story in her chart. Condoleezza Rice is our next example. Condoleezza Rice's father was a minister, and he was also dean of a college. So that's like, she's starting out in the ninth house, going ham. So a couple of quick things to note here. Condoleezza has Aquarius rising, and the ruler of Aquarius is the planet Saturn. So Saturn is representing Condoleezza in this chart because it's the ruler of her first house. We talked about the first house in a previous video. I'll link it here. But this Saturn is located in the ninth house. So she's basically living in her ninth house. So these influences that we've discussed in this video are going to be very prevalent for her. Also, the ruler of her ninth house is Venus, because Venus is the ruler of the sign of Libra, which is here on her ninth house cusp. So with Venus being in the 10th house, which is the house of career, we see those foreign influences playing heavily into the career that she's going to have. She served as the 66th Secretary of State for the United States. She was the first Black woman to do so. And she was also the first woman to serve as National Security Advisor for the U.S. She is highly educated. So in addition to her bachelor's and master's degree, she also has a PhD from the School of International Studies at the University of Denver. She has 14 honorary doctorates, and she's currently the director of the Hoover Institution at Stanford University. She also speaks 4 languages. I don't know if I mentioned language specifically with the 9th house previously, but given the foreign influence, it's definitely there. Aren't you glad we weren't doing that shot game? You'd be passed out by now. Toni Morrison is another example. She became a Catholic at the age of 12. Here's another example of someone who has the ruler of their ascendant in the 9th house. Toni has the Taurus ascendant, and the ruler of Taurus is Venus, and she has Venus in her 9th house based on the 5-degree rule that Venus is not in the 8th house because it's within 5 degrees of the next house, and it's the same sign. We bring that Venus into the 9th house. She has kind of the reverse of what we saw with Condoleezza. The ruler of her 10th house of career is in the 9th house because the ruler of her 10th house is Saturn, because it is the ruler of Capricorn, which is the sign that the 10th house cusp is falling in. So again, we have this influence of the person being in the 9th house, but also the career influence in the 9th house as well. Her baptismal name was Anthony, and that's where the name Toni came from. Toni Morrison is a graduate of Howard University, and she also got her master's degree at Cornell. She taught English at various universities. She became the first Black female editor at a publishing company called Random House, which is a very well-known publishing house, and that was in New York in the 1960s. So publishing is another 9th house signification. She's probably most well known for her novels The Bluest Eye, Sula, Beloved, that one's very popular. The list goes on and on. Also interesting, she has Venus in the 9th house in her chart, and she was married to a Jamaican architect. So there's the foreign influence of the 9th house with Venus, which is a planet of love partnerships. And she has 7 honorary doctorates on top of the degrees that she already had earned. And for our last celebrity example, we have me. So I'm not a celebrity just yet. Hopefully y'all help me get there. Come on now, share this video. So about me. I love long distance travel. I have traveled to, at this time of the recording of this video, to more than 20 something countries. I speak a few different languages, Portuguese, Spanish, English. Do I speak them well? Questionable, we'll talk. But also I can read some Italian too. I have a master's degree on top of my bachelor's degree. And when I was in college, I studied 9th house things. So I studied African and African American studies. So going back to, that's kind of a 4th house thing for me because I am African American or Black, but it's also 9th house because Africa technically is a foreign entity compared to where I am. It is a long distance away. I also took a lot of religion classes in school. I probably would have minored in it had my school not had these weird restrictions around majors and minors. My master's degree is in international trade policy, and clearly I love astrology, but also tarot. So if you want to have an astrology reading or tarot consultation done, hit me up at homegirlastrology.com. I'll add to that I grew up in a very religious home. We went to church like 6 or 7 days a week. It was real. And I still feel connected to the church even though I don't go regularly. All right, we did it, homie. If you're still here, thank you for watching. I hope that you've enjoyed this video on the 9th house. Feel free to give it a like, share it, subscribe to the channel. We've got more 9th house content coming your way with a few different interviews with 9th house personalities, people we've seen on the internet. So stay tuned for those. It'll be a fun time. Make sure the notifications are turned on. Hit that bell on your screen so you can stay ready. You ain't got to get ready for when these videos drop. You can just be there and know. Okay? Sorry to get all aggressive with you, but I hope you'll come back and see us again. And again, if you want a reading with me, feel free to book at homegirlastrology.com and check me out on my other social media channels like YouTube, Facebook, and stay in touch. Talk to y'all soon, homies. Peace.